Tormented Souls is a game I've wanted to play for a very long time now. I just didn't know it existed. It's a throwback title based on the very original Resident Evil and Silent Hill games from the PlayStation 1 era. That's right, a modern day video game that's created to mimic the classic survival horror games of the mid to late 90s. With that comes those classic tank controls, incredibly cheesy voice acting, fixed camera angles, and an unbelievably atmospheric game that spends more time on exploration and the unsettling environment than it does on action. Make no mistake about it though, there is action to be had here, but you need to conserve your ammunition, health, and remember those ink ribbons from the original Resident Evil games? Well, the same mechanic works here, but with an old recording tape reel instead of ink ribbons. This means you have to use strategy to complete the game. You can't just go around willy-nilly. You have to be slow and methodical about when to fight, when to run, and when to save. Exploration is rewarded though, and if you spend enough time searching every nook and cranny, you should have enough health, ammunition, and recording tape to make your way through the game without too much fuss. Currently, Tormented Souls is available on PC and PlayStation 5, with a version hitting the Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One later on, and I'm using air quotes for that, because that's what the official website says. But if it's incorrect, and it might well be, as I noticed a lot of inconsistencies with the website and the game itself, please go ahead and leave a comment and let me know. I played through the Steam version, and everything you're seeing here is from the first 2 to 3 hours or so of gameplay. These types of games are worth experiencing for yourself, and I truly don't want to spoil anything. You take on the role of Caroline Walker, who received a mysterious letter in the mail that had a picture of 2 little girls. Ever since she's seen that picture, she can't sleep at night. She keeps having these horrible nightmares. And she takes it upon herself to locate these 2 missing girls. And that takes her to Wildberger Hospital, which used to be the old Wildberger mansion. The hospital has long since been abandoned, yet Caroline is not alone. Something creeps in the dark, and the minute she steps foot into the hospital, she's rendered unconscious by a mysterious figure. When she wakes up, she's in for one nasty surprise. And it's at that point where you, the player, take control right then and there. Can you unlock the secrets of Wildberger Hospital? Can you find the missing girls? Can you even make it out alive? Since the game's August 27, 2021 release date on Steam, the developer has reached out to the community to announce incoming updates, such as a single button map, which will be introduced shortly. So by the time you actually play the game, some of the things I mentioned here may have already been addressed. So let's talk about some of the issues. Well, for starters, this is an old school survival horror game, for better and worse. If you dislike the tank controls, you're likely not going to be thrilled with how slow Caroline feels. That said, if you use the analog stick, you have a much easier time of it. Caroline will automatically turn around, and the analog controls have her default setting to run, so you don't actually need to press another button to have her run. This makes the controls feel much more intuitive than something, say, than the original Resident Evil, for example. Not everything is as intuitive though. For example, the already mentioned map system leaves a lot to be desired in its current state. The only way, at least as of the time of this review, to bring up the map is to open the menu system and click on the map itself. Knowing this will be fixed is welcome, but you also don't know your position on the map. Not even the area you're located in is highlighted. I do believe this will be corrected, but the developer said they will never add an arrow showing your exact position because that will make the game feel too new age. And I can sort of respect that. At least knowing your overall room would be a great help. Exploration is spot on and works exactly like the old school survival horror games, so fans will be delighted with that. Combat too is very familiar. There's an auto-aim function that makes combat much more manageable than it otherwise would be. You have access to a crowbar, a nail gun, and eventually even a shotgun of sorts. There are also environmental hazards you can trip up enemies in, which is a really nice touch, although these are few and far between. The twist with a combat system is that Caroline can't ever be in the dark. At least not for long, or it's game over. This means you always have to hold your trusty lighter. And no, don't worry, there's no fuel gauge here. This thing lasts forever. Knowing this, how do you attack an enemy that's in a hallway that's completely dark? Well, the answer is you don't. You first have to make your way around the enemies, find a way to light the hallway, and then come back and take out the creature. This adds quite a bit of tension, which I personally loved. I do wish they added a hot swap button so you didn't have to go into the menu every single time you needed to switch back and forth between a weapon or the lighter, because believe me, you're going to be doing this hundreds of times throughout the adventure. Speaking of enemies, the creature designs are pleasantly disturbing, mostly taking on the shape of horribly disfigured humans. The rest of the audio-visual presentation is also top-notch. I found the music to be incredibly reminiscent of the original Resident Evil, while the sound effects and ambient noises reminded me more of Silent Hill. Overall, just top-tier stuff. The graphics are certainly budget limiting, meaning don't expect AAA multi-million-dollar graphics, but they certainly look nice and create the unpleasant atmosphere you've come to expect from a game like this. Finally, we have the puzzles, and it's here where I find the game could have used just a bit more tightening up. I really enjoyed the exploration, the tension the combat brings, and the resource management, but the puzzles can leave you a bit perplexed at times when you have to juggle multiple puzzles at once. Eventually you'll find an item that will work in an area you remember traveling through, but maybe it was an hour or 2 hours ago, and now you don't exactly remember where you need to use this particular item. Meanwhile, you're working on another 2 puzzles. Sometimes this caused me to take physical notes in order to remember where things were, and I understand that this is exactly what the developer had in mind, but I just wanted to let you know that it can be a little bit cumbersome and frustrating at times. The story is another area that is purposely cliché and filled with horror tropes. The voice acting, like I already mentioned earlier, is unbelievably cheesy, but that too I can appreciate because it fits the tone perfectly. I wasn't at all surprised by any of the twists in the story, and I doubt you will either, but the atmosphere more than makes up for any of the game's shortcomings. I had heard about this game from Ahmed, and he was surprised that it flew under his radar, and I have to admit, it flew under mine as well. I didn't hear anything about Tormented Souls until he mentioned it to me, and then I downloaded it and I couldn't stop playing it. I need to be crystal clear here. If you enjoyed the classic survival horror games from years back and have been craving a new one ever since, this is an instant must-buy. If you're new to the genre, then this might be a little too old school for you. If you find the gameplay looks interesting, however, give it a playthrough and it just might open your eyes to the wonderful world of classic survival horror. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to head back into the hospital as I missed a couple of hidden notes here and there, and that means there's more story waiting to be discovered.